we have a gap right now in nursing. All right? A gap in nursing. This gap, and we have a medical services task force. I've got a great guy working on it who used to run the ER at Bethesda, retired Navy captain, who is working this problem for us. But he's projecting out for me, Jeff, here's what our nursing shortage is going to be 8 years from now. Here's what our nursing shortage is going to be 12 years from now. Where do you think these nurses are going to come from? They're going to have to come from outside the United States. Now, we have a great education product here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Great schools. Deval Patrick wants to give away our education to people who are here illegally. I say that's a product. We have a weak dollar. Let people come over to the United States. Let's make that weak dollar into lemonade. We sell these full price slots in our schools. We, as part of our immigration program, address the nursing shortage by saying, yes, you can come, but we'd like you to work 6 months in a US hospital upon graduation before you get your certificate as an immigrant. We're not breaking new ground here, folks. This is what the military does right now to allow people to gain citizenship, to come in and serve and help us out. So this is the type of new idea that we're going to have in our immigration policy. We're going to examine what America's needs are, and we're going to invite people, I don't know how many drywallers we need, but I know we need nurses. So we're going to make sure that the people we issue visas to have the skills that we need. The tradespeople that are home right now, believe me, great story. Ken talked about people that are going to come across and help us. When we were in the Worcester St. Patrick's Day parade a couple of weeks ago, the thing that amazes me is tomorrow we're in a St. Patrick's Day parade in Holyoke. I mean, this St. Patrick guy, he was just a party, But when we were in the Worcester parade a couple of weeks ago, right behind us was the Carpenters Union, right? And these guys were going to come over and they saw these signs. John Kerry, you can't get rid of John Kerry, he's our guy. So I intercepted him and talked to him. I said, hey, what's John Kerry done for you? Do you realize that your guys are sitting at home because he's got all these people here illegally doing the work that you used to do? And you can see these guys starting to back up. Said, do you realize that Jeff Beatty, I've been in the union. I've been a Teamster when I was working my way through school. You think John Kerry's ever been a card-carrying union member? I don't think so. By the end of the parade, these guys came over. I would say fully a third of these guys sought me out at the end of the parade, come over and shake hands and say, hey, thanks a lot, we'll be with you. Now this, as Ken said, this is what's happening every time we go out and get a chance to talk to people and tell them what we believe in. Because you know what? We as Republicans, we as conservatives, we believe in the things that this Commonwealth needs. And they realize that they've been sold a bill of goods by John Kerry when it comes to the economy. And they're ready to make the change. So we're going to give them that chance because relevant experience-wise, we're stronger on the economy than John Kerry. I talked a little bit about immigration. I also want to talk about the great work that Barbara Jordan did in this commission for Bill Clinton. She headed this immigration commission. You know what it said? The result was this: no benefits for anyone who's in the country illegally except of a life-saving nature. That makes sense to me. What do you see is happening in these cities around the country where people are being told no benefits if you're here illegally? What's happening in those cities? People that are there illegally are moving out. They're self-migrating. They're leaving those cities. I can tell you something else I'm going to do. Not only push for this commission, but I'm going to introduce legislation that will make sure. Any of you ever heard the term harboring a criminal? Yeah. That's a crime, right? People that are in this country illegally are criminal, right? What about these municipal officials who try to make their cities sanctuary cities? Is that harboring a criminal? Yes. We're going to ask that question. We're going to ask it loud and clear. We're going to ask it publicly. Because I'm tired of any city in this country that takes a nickel's worth of your tax dollar and uses it to create a sanctuary for people that are breaking the law. If we stand together on this, we will have the immigration policy and we will have the immigrants that we need to keep our country strong and vibrant. We will not have immigrants that drag us down. And that's the difference. John Kerry, Jeff Beatty, contrast them. John Kerry's here looking out for people that are breaking the rules. Jeff Beatty's here to look out for people who are following the rules. And people get that, and that's why they're going to switch over and vote for us. I want to talk about just a couple of examples on relevant experience. Relevant experience when it comes to the war. Right before we went into this war, the Pentagon invited people over to get a briefing. Some of you have heard this. Bear with it. I tell it faster every time. If those that haven't, you need to understand this. This is relevant experience. This is where it fits in. I got one of the invitations. I went to Rumsfeld's conference room. There's about a dozen people there. I didn't get it personally. One of my clients got it. He said, Jeff, you'll get more out of this. You go. So I got over there, met the secretary. You know, we had the nice coffee, the good china, the whole bit. You know, the secretary says, well, I'm going to leave you in the able hands of the Deputy Assistant Secretary to someone who donated to a campaign one time, and enjoy the briefing. So do you remember those mobile weapons laboratory drawings that we saw that Colin Powell took down to the United Nations? So he gives the briefing. He's got those drawings up there, and he finishes the briefing. And this is such a, building up support before we go in, before Colin goes to the United Nations, and before we invade Iraq. And he says, any questions? Well, this was a red meat crowd. Let's go get Saddam. I waited a few seconds till the blood pressure came down in the room, and I asked my question. I said, excuse me, sir, great briefing, lovely drawings, compliments to the graphics department. My question is this. When I was in Delta Force as the operations officer under Ronald Reagan, we used to have a rule that no U.S. troops would be committed to battle without U.S. eyes on the target. And I've also been a CIA officer, and I've run operations in Europe and the Middle East against the weapons of mass destruction target. I've recruited terrorists. I know these types of people. So my question is, has some Delta Force guy low-crawled across the desert for 2 nights to get a good close picture of one of these things, or maybe scooped up a soil sample off the rear steps of it so we know what's being made in there? Or better yet, have we, since we have the capacity, have we plucked one off of the desert and have it on a flatbed, ready for Colin Powell to take down to the United Nations next week? Wouldn't that have been nice? Or are we basing this upon the reporting of some foreign agent who the more fantastic a tale he tells us, the better we compensate him? Which is it? And it got real quiet in the room. And the briefer goes, well, Mr. Beatty, first of all, thank you for your service. I said, you're welcome. It's an honor. He said, but we believe that it's a virtual certainty that these vans exist the way we've described them to you. Do you see the problem with putting those 2 words right next to each other? Virtual certainty. Now, I knew right then and there we didn't have it. Don't get me wrong, folks. I'm not against using force when it's necessary. But I'm also very conscious of how easy it is for somebody to lose their life when force is applied. And how important it is to have a lot of people on your side when you want to go use force. And I knew we didn't have it. Contrast that to John Kerry. If you read the books by Kerry's advisors, they say Kerry voted for the war to make himself look presidential. He had to overcome that post-Vietnam flavor that people had of him. Yeah. And so his advisors told him, you have to look like a commander-in-chief. You have to vote for the war. So John Kerry didn't vote for the war on its merits, whether the case had been made or not, even though he's trying to tell you that, oh, I was lied to. It didn't matter whether you were lied to. You just did it to look presidential.